What is up, my friends? Welcome to Flippin' Bats. We are in the midst of the championship series in baseball. We got the NLCS 2 games in. We got the ALCS 1 game in with game 2 happening tonight. Garrett Cole on the bump for the Yankees, Tanner Bybee on the bump for the Guardians. We'll talk all about that. A lot happening around the game as well. Gold Glove finalists were released. Lindor isn't one of them. We'll talk about that later in the show. These series have been a lot of fun so far. Dodgers Mets is tied up 1-1. We'll talk all about that series. We'll talk Yankees and their lineup construction. I think Aaron Boone absolutely has to make a move. I don't know why he hasn't done it yet, but it has to happen. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about both series and then some fan questions at the end. But let's get started with a couple things happening around baseball before we talk about these series. Breaking news, essentially, early Tuesday morning. Rob Thompson with the Philadelphia Phillies, manager there, has been extended through 2026. I know there was a lot of people up in arms about the way he handled the bullpen, whether he should be manager or not, whether he should be fired. Well, he was extended through 2026. The entire coaching staff is going to remain the same. Here's my thoughts on it. Not his fault. His team can't hit in October this year. I mean, he had how many guys go hit under 100, under 200 this year? The guys that he needed to be the guys. Alec Boehm didn't show up. Brandon Marsh didn't show up. A lot of the guys in the lineup that you need to add depth, JT Realmuto, they just weren't hitting. And for whatever reason, it ain't Rob Thompson's fault. Bullpen, by the way. I mean, there were concerns with the bullpen coming into it. How do you use when you need to get 3 leverage outs when you don't have high leverage guys? How do you blame it on the manager? So I think Rob Thompson, since he took over, has done a fantastic job with the team. Interim manager, gets him to the World Series. Team started playing well under him. And then come this October, they were built for success. He put them in a place to succeed. And at the end of the day, for whatever reason, the players just didn't go out there and get it done this October. So I don't mind this hiring or this extension at all, but Rob Thompson stays with the Phillies. On the American League side of things, it came out that Guardians, Tigers, last series there. For game 5, Tarek Skubal on the mound for the Detroit Tigers. Jose Ramirez offered his teammates $1,000 for each home run hit and $500 for each RBI in game 5 of the ALDS. I love this. I love it. This is more than I think GMs, I think owners should do this. Jose Ramirez is doing more for the pockets of Cleveland Guardians players than Bob Nutting is doing for the Pittsburgh Pirates over there. He doesn't care. Jose Ramirez cares. Hey, biggest game of the year. You know what? You go out, you do something well, money out of my pocket into yours. Let's go beat Tarek Skubal. They did. Congratulations to Lane Thomas. Hits a grand slam. That's a $3,000 homer by my math. 4 RBIs, $2,000, a homer, another $1,000, $3,000 for his game-winning grand slam to send the team to the ALCS, where you're going to continue to get more of a playoff bonus. It's a win-win for everybody. I loved it. I loved hearing that. So Guardians advance to play the Yankees. They're 1 game in. They do play tonight as well, Tuesday night, but they are down 1-0 in this series after game 1. Yankees come out early, score a couple runs early in the ball game. Tack went on late with a Stanton homer, end up winning that game 5-1. Guardians need to grab one tonight. They got their guy going. Tanner Bybee's been great for them all year. Got better and better as the season went on. Interesting thing with him, when his last outing against the Tigers, Tanner Bybee threw 9 sinkers. This is according to Baseball Savant. 9 sinkers all year long. He threw 11 on Thursday against the Tigers. So clearly just kind of figured something out as the year went on and really realized what his scouting report is and went at it in a different way against the Tigers. So I expect more of the same tonight against the Yankees. I think he figured something out with that sinker, and now he's going to throw it more and more. So I'll be interested to see that. But let's talk Yankees. They're up 1-0 in the series, right? So there's the old adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, I'm going to disagree with that from a Yankees perspective. Aaron Boone, what are you doing with Austin Wells in the 4-hole? Get him out. Austin Wells is the protection behind Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge is struggling. We know that. I've talked about that. Aaron Judge in his playoff career is hitting 204. So there's a whole October issue we can talk about. But in these playoffs, he's 2 for 15 these playoffs, hitting 133. And what I'm going to say about that is Aaron Judge is the best pure hitter. If we're just talking position player in baseball, I think that answers Aaron Judge. And I know Shohei, and I will say until the end of time, Shohei Ohtani is the best baseball player that I've ever seen. I think he could be the best of all time. I think he's the most talented player ever. But if we're just talking position player, I think the best position player in baseball is Aaron Judge. So he's 2 for 15. That's a 15 at bat sample size. He's going to win the MVP again this year. He's hitting 133 these playoffs. Does he have a bit of an October hump to get over? Sure. But a big factor for me is that we have Austin Wells, who's hitting 066 behind him in the lineup. And it's not like he's carried a great end of the regular season into the playoffs where he started struggling. Austin Wells is 4 for his last 61. In my opinion, Giancarlo Stanton has to be moved up in the lineup. Right now, Giancarlo Stanton's hitting over 360 in the playoffs. Another home run Monday night. Right now, when you look in the on-deck circle, Juan Soto's up to the plate. You look over, you see Aaron Judge, you think, oh, God. Aaron Judge is up at the plate. You look over and you see Austin Wells. It's not the same. When Austin Wells is up and you look in the on-deck circle right now and see Giancarlo Stanton, you're thinking, oh, man, this is one of the best power hitters in postseason history. He hits a home run every 8.8 at-bats in the postseason, which is neck and neck with Babe Ruth all time. Babe Ruth was 8.6 at-bats. Giancarlo Stanton right now is every 8.8 at-bats. Second best all time in terms of home runs per at-bat with a minimum of 100 postseason at-bats. You look over there right now when Giancarlo Stanton's on deck and you think that is a presence. That guy has a presence. He's huge. He's in fuego right now at the plate. He's got a ton of power, one of the best power hitters in postseason history. Why are we still continuing to put Austin Wells as the protection behind Aaron Judge? It's a no-brainer to me. There is no reason right now, if you're the Cleveland Guardians or the Kansas City Royals, there's no reason to throw anything to Aaron Judge. So right now, if Aaron Judge wants to succeed in the postseason, he's having to hit every pitcher's nastiest stuff, often stuff that's just out of the strike zone. So you're either just going to take your medicine, take your walks, head down to first base, or you're going to press and do too much and swing at pitches that you shouldn't be swinging at because you have Austin Wells behind you. And there's this, by the way, Austin Wells had a good year, a really good first year, but this is no discredit to him. But right now, he's just not the 4-hitter for the New York Yankees. And I think managers keep doing what they've been doing. I think they keep doing what has been working because it's easier. And I think if it doesn't work, you can say, well, I went with what got us here all year long, and unfortunately, it led us this far, and now our season's over. I think it takes guts to make a move with your cleanup hitter in Game 4 or in the ALCS. I think that takes guts. I don't know if Aaron Boone has those guts. I'm interested to see. Maybe he does it tonight. Maybe he doesn't do it at all. But right now, I think Aaron Judge is getting a lot of flack in terms of his postseason production. And I get it. I understand it. But I'm not going to be that. I'm not going to do that right now. I think a big part of that reason is because you don't have a good hitter right now behind him. Either move up Giancarlo Stanton or flip-flop Judge and Soto and put Judge in the 2-hole and Soto behind him and Stanton behind him. I get it. All year long, that's not what happens. Soto goes 2, Judge goes 3. But again, this is the time where managers make their mark. These are the decisions that are hardest to make. It's not hard to make that decision in July. It's hard to make it on October 15th in the American League Championship Series when you just beat the Royals and it worked there. But you can't continue this series with Austin Wells protecting Aaron Judge. You just can't. I think a move needs to be made. I think Aaron Boone needs to have the guts to be able to do it. I will give him a lot of credit if he's able to. I have my doubts, though. But we'll see. We'll see if he's able to do that. Yankees are up 1-0 in this series. This is the easiest path in decades that the Yankees have had to get to the World Series. You have to. I spoke about it a couple weeks ago. If the Yankees don't get to the World Series this year, fold the franchise. You got two AL Central teams to beat. You had to beat the Royals or either the Guardians and the Tigers. The Yankees dominate the AL Central. The AL Central was not supposed to have three teams in the playoffs. And now, after the Orioles and the Astros get beat in the first round, your path to the World Series is to beat teams that are grateful to be there this year and that you on paper are far better than? The Yankees can't win the World Series continuing to do what they've done with the lineup. They can't. Shifts need to be made. I do believe they can beat the Guardians with it that way, but I think the best time to do it is right now. Shift up Giancarlo Stanton, switch Juan Soto and Aaron Judge. One or the other has to happen. Both can happen. You can move up Stanton and flip-flop those two. Then you have a lineup that goes Aaron Judge in the 2-hole, Juan Soto in the 3-hole, Giancarlo Stanton in the 4-hole. Then you can go Wells. Then you can go Jazz. Doesn't matter. Then you're going righty, lefty, righty, lefty. Look at that. Looks beautiful. Aaron Boone, make the move before it's too late. Garrett Cole on the mound tonight for the New York Yankees. Their ace, their stud, coming off a really good outing against the Kansas City Royals. Guardians got their guy going as well. Should be a great game here tonight. But the Yankees have to get to the World Series. You got to win this game. You got to take the 2-0 advantage going back to Cleveland. This is the longest drought that the New York Yankees, we're currently in the midst of the longest stretch without getting to the World Series since the Babe Ruth era of the New York Yankees, the early 1920s. That has to end this year. Let's switch over to the National League side of things. We'll talk Mets. We'll talk Dodgers. What a series we got over there. We are 2 games in on that series. We have game 2 necessarily doesn't look like a blowout in the box score, but it was. It was out of reach from early. The Dodgers did get back into play, had a few opportunities, but essentially Dodgers blowout in game 1 to go up 1-0. Mets blowout early to have an early big lead and never look back from there. We got a 1-1 series. Game 1 of this series, Dodgers with another shutout. Dodgers' consecutive scoreless streak got to 33 consecutive innings after that shutout in game 1. Jack Flaherty was masterful. Bullpen closed it out. Bullpen game then in day 2, in game 2, and it didn't go as well. Immediately, the scoreless streak ends. Brazier gives up that homer to Lindor in the first inning. Knack gave up 5 earned runs after that. And that is the nature of a bullpen game, my friends. That is the problem with them. And I admitted it last show. I do think I didn't give as much credit as I think they deserve to the Dodgers bullpen. I think starting pitching wise, I've been very vocal about their lack of depth, and I have been saying that I don't think the Dodgers bullpen is good. And I think I've been proven wrong there. I think they are good, but that doesn't mean that you're set up well for a bullpen game. This is the problem with bullpen games in the playoffs. Not that they can't work. They obviously can work. The Dodgers are here in the NLCS because it worked against the Padres. It worked perfectly. But the problem is you're then counting on 6, 7, 8 pitchers to all be on their A game. And the odds of that happening are slim. Not that you can't count on everyone coming out of the bullpen, but somebody is bound to just have a bad day. Bad days happen. I always remember my brother's pitching. My brother, a lot of the way he pitches and a lot of his mindset and his idol was Nolan Ryan. And Nolan Ryan would often say, I looked back on a bad start and enjoyed it because it meant I got it out of the way. This is Nolan Ryan talking about his bad starts and just saying, it's going to come. So every time you have these new pitchers come out of the bullpen, it's bound to be somebody's bad day. Ryan Brazier gave up a homer to the first batter. Knack gave up 5 earned runs in 2 innings. It was not his day. And the fact that you were expecting on bulk outs out of Knack, who it wasn't his day, the game's immediately over. 5 earned runs in his 2 innings, 6-0 after the third. That's ball game. That's the danger of bullpen games. And that is why I worry about the Los Angeles Dodgers throughout the entirety of the playoffs, because they're going to have to turn to bullpen games. They're going to have to turn to a Walker Buehler, who right now isn't the answer. I know everybody was all pumped after his last start, after all those runs, because he turned it around and ended up having a good rest of the outing. But we're talking 6 earned runs. I mean, the 6 runs in the 5 innings, or 5 in the 6, whatever that was. That's not a good start. And he hasn't been good. His ERA all year is over 6. I like Walker Buehler. Obviously, there's injuries involved. I'm not saying he's not a good pitcher, but this year, what didn't go well coming back from injury. Then you turn to him in the playoffs. He doesn't do well in the playoffs. He has a bad start. And at the end of it, because he got through a few innings without giving up a run, everyone's saying, Walker Buehler, best start ever, giving up five earned in 6 innings. What are we talking about? That's not a good start. And now we're counting on a bullpen game. At some point throughout a 7-game series, you're counting on multiples of a bullpen game and Walker Buehler. Who doesn't have their doubts with that? You have to. Is the offense good enough? Sure it is. It can be. Right now, I'm not so sure the offense is good enough. Will Smith is hitting .087 in the postseason. Small sample size, sure. Let's go to the second half of the year. He had .206 the second half of the season. He's hitting .087 in the postseason. He was the protection of the big 3. Then you move Teoscar into the 4-hole. Then he's that protection. At some point, you need Will Smith, because the Dodgers lineup already isn't the most deep lineup in baseball. You have the best big 3. Then you have Teoscar Hernandez and Will Smith. When you lose Will Smith, next thing you know, you have one great half of the lineup, one bad half of the lineup. And Will Smith right now is on the other half of that because he's really, really pressing at the plate. You need him to be better. I know we're talking about a 1-1 series, but right now, how do you not feel like all the momentum in the world is with the Mets? It already was. This whole second half, all the momentum in baseball, the best energy, the best vibes, the best momentum in baseball since the All-Star break has been with the New York Mets. And then they continue to push their way through the playoffs. They continue to win games. Then you get into this series. You get a punch in the face in game 1, and then you come back before you get 3 games at home, and you dominate a game, and now you have a 1-1 series as you head back home for 3 games. How do you not feel good about the Mets' chances right now? I don't know. I have my concerns about the Dodgers. I continue to have them. It's not that they don't have the pitchers that can get outs in the bullpen. It's that when you have to turn to an entire bullpen to win a ball game, somebody's going to be off their game. And right now, the offense isn't playing well enough to make up for those games. And to play well enough, you need to be at the top of their potential. They gave up 6 runs in 3 innings the other day. That's ball game. The offense tried to get back into it, but just we're missing that big hit down the stretch, and then that big double play happened. But offense needs to step up with that depth. Mookie's hitting much better. Freddie, Shohei Ohtani in the postseason. I am sick and tired of hearing people say that Shohei Ohtani is struggling in the playoffs. Game 1, first playoff game in the career of Shohei Ohtani, the 3-run homer. The Dodgers might not be here right now if it weren't for that homer. They were down 3-0, 3-run homer to tie it. Place is going nuts. They end up winning that series in 5 games and winning that game. And maybe the whole series is way different if that doesn't happen. Then in game 1 of the NLCS, his first ever game in the National League Championship Series, a couple lasers, an absolute laser off the wall, 116.5 mile an hour double off the wall in right center and almost put a hole in the wall. He's hitting 250 after that game. after game 2. He goes 0 for 3 with 2 strikeouts. Now he's sitting at 222. He's a leadoff single, a leadoff homer, a leadoff hit away in game 3 from hitting 250 in the playoffs with multiple extra base hits, a homer that won game 1, rocket doubles. He's finding his team a way to win in multiple ways, getting on base, taking second base on a fly ball to center field, running the bases well. I don't understand. Is he having the MVP? Is he having his MVP type season in the playoffs so far? No. Shohei was unbelievable this year. Over 50 homers. But is he having a bad postseason? No. He's a 2 for 4 game away from hitting 260 something with multiple extra base hits and RBIs and running the bases well. What are we doing? I get I get stuff in my mentions all the time. What's happening to Shohei? What's happening to your guy Shohei? What do you mean? The Dodgers might not be here right now if it weren't for Shohei's postseason homer. Game 1, great game 1. Struggled in game 2. If he has a great game 3, he's hitting 270. I don't understand the discussion about his struggles in the postseason. He's not struggling. He's just not absolutely on fire like we're used to. And that can change Wednesday in New York. I mean, it can change in a hurry. So Shohei is fine, will be fine. Will Smith, I have my concerns about. Track record speaks longer there. First half, good. Second half, not good. Postseason, really not good. Dodgers bullpen struggles. This series is shifting to New York, where it's going to be wild. It's going to be raucous. It's going to be crazy. It's shifting to New York with all the momentum with the Mets, with the Dodgers with pitching concerns and struggles. I think before this series started, when I do the picks for each series on FanDuel, every series, I had Mets plus 1.5 games in this series, which means the Mets don't have to win. If it goes to a game 7, the Mets win that bet. Just Mets plus 1.5 games. I don't know right now if after watching the first 2 games, I don't see a world in which you don't pick the Mets to win this series. Momentum can change. If momentum changes in game 3, sure. But what I expect right now is for the New York Mets to get a home NLCS game on Wednesday, to come out hot, to continue that momentum, to win game 3, and then take real command of that series. I think game 3 is a must-win game for the Los Angeles Dodgers. I think with all the momentum the Mets have, if they win game 3, I think they win the series. I think it's a must-win. I think if the Dodgers win game 3, Mets can still win this series. I think if the Mets win game 3, it's over. And I know that's tough to say. I know the Dodgers are a great team. In fact, I thought they had every bit of a chance to win this series. But right now, all that momentum is going to the Mets, and I worry about the Dodgers. I worry about that pitching and all the momentum in the world for the Mets going back home for 3 games. If they can win 2 of 3 there, which I believe they can, then you got to win 1 back in Los Angeles. I think all the momentum in the world is with the Mets, and I like where they're sitting right now. Good series there, 1-1, shifting back to New York, not back to New York, shifting to New York for the first time in the NLCS in a long, long time there in Queens. So I'm pumped for them to get that game, get a couple games at home. Good series so far. We get Yankees Guardians tonight. Great pitching matchup. ALCS rolls on for a game 2. I have expected. I think the Yankees win this series. I don't know if it comes back to. I don't know if this series gets back to New York. I think the Yankees handle their business here. I would love the lineup isn't out yet as the time of recording this. I wouldn't be shocked. I would change the lineup. I know we had a whole discussion about this. I would change the lineup. I would do it tonight. I don't know if Aaron Boone has the guts to do it tonight. I don't know if he has the guts to do it in the ALCS because he hasn't done it all year long. You ride with what's been working. That's what he's doing. I disagree with that. Change it right now before it's too late. Get comfortable with it as you head towards, hopefully, the World Series and go from there. Let's move on to some fan questions. As I told you all last week, new sponsor, friend of the show, Go Sleeves. This is our Go Sleeves fan questions of the day. Again, by the way, with Go Sleeves, I wish I had this when I was playing. When I was playing high school ball, and then I went back after I finished playing and volunteered at my high school. And the cool thing now across all sports, but baseball, is your sleeves, right? These compression sleeves. And I think Go Sleeves in a baseball world, especially in my world now, and in a golf world, a golf recovery, tennis, whatever. But in the name of recovery, Go Sleeves, what they do with the kinesio tape inside, built into the compression sleeve, I think would have been brilliant and worked wonders for me if I had it starting in high school on in my career. So if you're a young player in the game, please check out Go Sleeves. You can see the link below if you're watching on YouTube, but it's gosleeves.com/Verlander. You can get 15% off of anything there. But let's get to our Go Sleeves fan questions of the day. First up, how is Francisco Lindor not a Gold Glove finalist 3 years in a row? Gold Glove finalists were released this morning. Francisco Lindor is not one of them. This is a great question because I think this is the one that there's no explanation for this. Francisco Lindor not being a Gold Glove finalist is an absolute joke. It's a joke. Lindor won 2 Gold Gloves with the Cleveland Indians. Cleveland organization. Lindor wins 2 Gold Gloves. Comes over to the Mets, plays great defense, has yet to win, yet to be a finalist. Now let's talk about him this year. Last 2 years wasn't named, but this year, I don't see a world in which something fishy is happening. I'm not one for conspiracy theories. I'm not one to blame anybody, but there's literally no world in which Francisco Lindor shouldn't be a Gold Glove finalist at least. He's second in the NL in defensive runs saved behind Dansby. And this is no offense to Ezekiel Tovar and Mason Wynn, who are the other finalists, but he should be over both of those guys. But he don't need to be. He just got to be better than one. Ranks third in all of Major League Baseball in Fangraphs defensive metrics, second in all Major League Baseball in outs above average. Should he win the award over Dansby? Probably not. But not being named as a top 3 finalist is a joke. Listen to this. Let's compare the 3. Francisco Lindor versus Ezekiel Tovar versus Mason Wynn. Outs above average. Lindor's at 16. That's in the 98th percentile. Ezekiel Tovar is at 15. Also in the 98th percentile. Mason Wynn is at 3. That's in the 83rd percentile. Fielding run value, another advanced metric. Francisco Lindor is at 12. That's in the 96th percentile. Ezekiel Tovar is at 11. That's in the 94th percentile. Mason Wynn is at 3. That's in the 72nd percentile. How? What am I missing? How is Francisco Lindor not named a finalist over Mason Wynn? It does not make sense. Let's just talk numbers. Let's take names out of it. Let's talk numbers like we just did. It's Francisco Lindor. Let's put names in it. We're talking Francisco Lindor, one of the faces of New York, one of the faces of baseball. And we're just blatantly snubbing him? I would love an explanation here on how, on why, because it does not make sense. Francisco Lindor was absolutely snubbed of a Gold Glove, and it is a joke that he is not named a finalist. Thank you for that question. Next question. Thoughts on Dave Roberts' decision-making as a manager, and should he be fired if the Dodgers lose this series? So, if you've been listening to the show or watching the show for a couple of years, you would know I've been pretty vocal about Dave Roberts. And that is, I don't call for people's jobs. I don't think it's right. I don't think, but I do think Dave Roberts a lot has deserved some criticism in places. 2 first round, a couple years in a row, first round exit out of the playoffs to a division opponent. So I think that was worth. I think last year I was vocal about another first round exit. Another year, I think, pushing the panic button with the pitching staff, with the pitching rotation, doing things differently, and just being in my thoughts a little bit over his head. I I actually think this year has been some of Dave Roberts' best work with all of the injuries that he's had to deal with. Everywhere. Lineup, depth in the lineup, superstars, Mookie, Freddie, pitching rotation. God, how many injuries can you possibly have in a year on a pitching rotation? On a staff as a whole, bullpen, they are decimated. And I actually think with the cards that he's been dealt, and again, if you're going to get dealt lesser cards than everybody else, make them the best cards you can possibly get. And he's done that, obviously. The superstars are countless on the Dodgers, right? I understand that. So I understand me saying with the cards he's been dealt, like he's up against it. He's not up against it per se. But I think he's done a fantastic job with the pieces that he's had, the injuries that have come about, and getting them to where they are. Do you think Dave Roberts wants to have a bullpen game in every series? You think he would rather just hand the ball to a starting pitcher that can go 6, 7 innings, giving up 1 or 2 runs every night, and then hand it to the bullpen? Sure. But he's not dealt those cards. He's having to look in the mirror and say, okay, do I turn to this guy that's a starter, or do we go a bullpen game and just try and piece it together? And the reason they're here is because he did piece it together perfectly against the San Diego Padres. It fell into place perfectly. Can it all postseason long? Bad. I don't think so. But so far, it's worked. It didn't work in game 2. But to answer your question, if they lose in this series and the NLCS in this year, I don't think Dave Roberts should be fired. I think this has been some of his best work. I think they've made it far considering their pitching injuries. Obviously, I think there's a lot of pressure on them to win a World Series. I never thought this was the year for them to win the World Series. I thought coming into it, with Shohei not pitching, with other pitching concerns and injuries, I didn't think this was the year. I do think it'll be a failure if they don't get there with the payroll and their superstars, but I do think Dave Roberts deserves credit for the way he has handled this roster and in its entirety this year. But a great question. I do talk about this, I feel like, yearly, and this year in particular, I think he deserves credit for where they are, how he's gotten them here, and how he has managed the team to this point. Again, thank you for that question. Thank you for the Lindor question. These have been your Go Sleeves fan questions of the day. Tuesday night, coming right up. Yankees, Guardians, game 2 in the Bronx. Garrett Cole on the bump. Tanner Bybee for the Guardians. This is going to be a lot of fun. We'll see. We'll see if Aaron Boone goes with the lineup change. I have my concerns. By the way, on the contrary, if Aaron Boone doesn't get to the World Series this year, if they lose to the Guardians in this series, there's a different conversation to be had about Aaron Boone than we just had with Dave Roberts. But we'll see. I feel like for years, the Yankees have underperformed. Aaron Boone, great regular season with the Yankees. Yankees get to the playoffs, and then they just fail and crumble. And I think it's because in the postseason, as a manager, you have to have the guts to make an uncomfortable move to win it all. And I think that uncomfortable move is moving up Giancarlo Stanton or switching Juan Soto and Aaron Judge in the lineup. Get it done. I would love to see that from Aaron Boone, and I will give him a lot of credit during our next show. But we will see if that happens. Thank you all for listening and watching this episode. Make sure you like, subscribe wherever you're listening. If you're listening to the podcast, like, subscribe wherever you listen. Leave a 5-star review. That does really help. If you're watching, you can watch everything on our YouTube channel, Flippin' Bats Pod there. Leave a comment. I love hopping in the comments and continuing a discussion or reading what you guys say and liking and responding to that. So please leave a comment. I love you all for watching. Thank you so much. Make sure you follow along on all social media as well. Got another episode coming up this week with Smoltz. Got another episode coming up after that. We're rolling in the playoffs. Playoffs are rolling along. I love you all so much. I love this community. It is the absolute best. Thank you all. And remember, until next time, my friends, find your bat and flip it.